June 17th, 2013. Salt Fork State Park, Bigfoot Ridge. Me and my girlfriend went to bed at about 10 p.m. Off and on, we heard really weird, loud screams. At about 1 in the morning, she woke me up in terror because whatever it was making the noise was now outside her tent, just feet from our heads, pulling handfuls of grass. She was frozen with fear and waited for it to walk away. When it did, she opened the tent where she heard twigs cracking, shining the flashlight in that direction when she saw its really big yellow eyes. They were close together, and it turned towards the wooded tree line. We believed it watched us grab our stuff and end the trip early. We left our tent and hauled it out of there fast. We are completely traumatized over the experience and would like to talk to somebody who believes. We also believed we attracted it because I was knocking on trees just after sunset. We were told there were no other people supposed to be in the area camping, but it looked like they left early also, leaving camping gear behind. It was just the two of us. And as for the environment, it was next to the marsh, a quiet and clear night. One thing to note is that all the frogs in the area had stopped making noise, all at once, and my dog was also acting weird, would not come out of the Jeep. A follow-up investigation report was done by an investigator by the name of Mark DeReth. After interviewing the main witness and having multiple conversations, I'm convinced that in fact something did occur that night on and around the campsite. The fear and tone of their voices while recounting the experience was quite compelling. She was awakened by something walking around their tent, making a sound similar to tearing out long grass. She listened for a short period of time while trying to wake up her boyfriend by nudging him. The walking sound became faint and then became quiet. She opened the tent door, crawled out with a flashlight on, and in hand scanning the surrounding area while on all fours. Towards the woodline, there was an area of tall reeds that led up to the forest. When her light shined in that direction, she clearly saw two large yellowish golf ball-sized eyes looking in her direction, standing in the reeds. Within seconds, the large eyes turned towards the forest and disappeared, making just a little noise on its departure. After seeing and hearing this, she panicked, abruptly awakening her boyfriend to the point that they both became quite concerned on what was out there. The boyfriend, who is 6'5", shined the flashlight in the woods and had his sidearm, he had a concealed carry permit, ready while his girlfriend went to get their vehicle and drive it back to the campsite. He could hear the footfalls at what he estimated was 100 feet into the woods. Once there, they quickly threw everything in the vehicle, drove straight home at around 2 in the morning, leaving their belongings and their tent behind. They were the only tent at the primitive campground and were very shaken up by the whole experience. They joked around earlier in the evening and made wood knocks since the campground was called Bigfoot Ridge. I asked the witness if the eye shine was a possible owl, and she said absolutely not. She could faintly hear it walk away when it turned towards the woodline, and stated there were no trees within 30 feet from where she could see it standing. She also stated that compared to her rather tall boyfriend, the thing she saw was much taller, and most definitely whiter. They also had a dog with them, but noted it was acting quite strange while tied up close to the woodline. After watching the dog's behavior, they all decided to put the dog in the vehicle before they went to bed. The dog did not bark the entire night once in the vehicle. Sunday. I was a vendor at Creature Weekend at Salt Fork State Park on May 4th. At around 9:45 p.m., a fisherman that was in a tournament came in all shaken up and said that, at first, I thought you guys were a bunch of nuts, until now. So he began to tell his story to the other vendors. So this grabbed my attention. I went over to listen, and there were about 5 of us that decided to go out the next morning at about 6 a.m. to check out the site. So I got there at 5, waited, and said to myself, if they are not here by 5:30 a.m., I'll start without them. Maybe they will catch up with me. So I started to head down the sagebrush trail, headed to where he got the picture. The wind was from my left to right, and the sun was on my left shoulder, halfway down the path. 2 deer must have smelt me, because they were on my right and started running. So I kept walking, and the sun started to come up, and when I hit the first turn on Sagebrush Trail, I heard something like talking on the ridge on my left. At first, I thought it was friend A and friend B, with friend A's black shirts on. So I hit a tree and yelled, "Hey guys, wait up." Then they started to walk faster, and I yelled, "Very funny guys." This is when I got a great look at them. Then, I knew what I was looking at on the ridge. It was 2 Bigfoot creatures. They were black and very huge. I tried to catch up with them, get a picture with these things, and they were walking fast. Once they get to the bottom of the ridge, they took off into the brush, but I did manage to get a whole good picture of them. You can see in the picture, the one turned to look to see if I was trying to follow them. When the one turned to look back, he had to turn his whole top half of his body, with his left arm going across his chest to look back at me. I tried to follow them, but once they got in the brush, I could not hear or see them. But I got a great look at them, and they were black as coal. The hair length was as long as a bear, and surprisingly well groomed. At any time, they could have stopped and tore me in half. But all they wanted to do is get away as fast as possible. The other thing I noticed, or the only other thing, that made me look up on the ridge was I heard something like somebody talking, but I could not make it out. It sounded like somebody outside your home talking, but again, it just sounded like muffled noise. Kind of like an 8-track tape player that was eating the tape. I did not smell anything like wild animal, but this could be because the wind blowing on top of the ridge. I searched for footprints of hair samples, but they came up empty-handed. A follow-up investigation report was done by investigator Mark Maisel. A site visit was performed on this area in June 15, 2013, and the following can be added to this report. The sighting took place on Shadebush Trail in Salt Fork State Park. It was about 3/4 of a mile down the 2-mile trail. At the point of first seeing these animals, the witness was approximately 200 feet away, on a ridge that was most likely cleared of brush. When I went to that spot, he stated that they were much bigger than myself. I'm about 6 feet tall. He also stated to me that they made me look small. The 2 animals were dark in color, and the witness describes them as huge. The witness described the long arms, longer than a human. Their walk and gait was weird, as they were sort of squatting as they walked. The closest that he was to these animals was upon the initial sighting. The witness was not able to discern any specific features. He simply was not close enough. He did note that the hair was not matted and had a very slight shine to it. When the animal turned to look at the witness, the animal turned its entire body. The witness also did not notice a neck and describes the turning motion as stiff. We moved to this location 2 years ago. We only lived here a few weeks, and my 4-year-old came running into the house and said he didn't want to play outside anymore. He seemed upset, but not extremely frightened. When I asked him what was wrong, he said he saw a monkey man looking at him through the trees. I went out there, and nothing was there. I searched around the area, but didn't see anything. My son took me to the tree and showed me where someone or something was looking at him, between a fork and the tree. That was 2 years ago. Yesterday, my oldest son, aged 15, was standing in the living room, glanced out the picture window. He says that something huge and black ran from some trees we have there besides the garage. I was kidding and said, "Is it Bigfoot?" And very seriously was like, "Yeah, I think it is." I ran out the back door, which is toward the opposite side of the garage than where whatever it was would be standing. I ran behind the garage and to the other side, but nothing was there. I live near a heavily wooded area, and the woods are close to the house, behind, and to one side of it. The garage blocks the view of the yard, and you can only see the front side from the window. Whatever it was would have had plenty of time to run into the woods. Tonight, my son's friend Bobby was visiting for the night and was outside getting things ready to build a fire when he called my husband from his cell phone to the house. He thought my husband or son was playing a trick on him to try and scare him. He told him to come out, and when my husband went out to him, Bobby told him something big was running from the tree to tree, looking at him. He said it was black, and even though it was dark, he saw the outline of the face, which is why he thought it was my husband or son. This would have been about 40 feet, ending to 20 feet away from him. He said it came from the right outside the tree line, from the yard, and then went into the tree line, running from tree to tree, looking at him, getting closer, like it was trying to hide from him, but still keep an eye on him. When my husband came out, Bobby turned away to ask him if my son was playing the joke. When he turned back, it was gone. They came in and told me, so we went out with the camera, took some pictures of the woods in the dark. I don't know if I got anything or not. Whatever it is, from descriptions given to me, it's about 6 to 6'4", and since everybody says it's about the size of my husband or son, husband is 6.5, and son is 6'2". Note, the porch light was on, and you could see the edge of the tree line because of the light. My cat that hardly ever leaves the deck has now disappeared. I attribute it to the old age thing, though because she was about 14, after all. But she was fine the night before when I fed her, and she does not ever disappear. She always sticks right by the house. There were no other witnesses. My youngest was playing on the deck. My oldest was standing in our living room, talking to his father and I. Bobby, my son's friend, was trying to get a fire started. There is also a big field leading into about 80 acres of woods. My house, remember, sits with woods very close to one side, with about 4 acres of open yard on the other side leading to more woods. Then the highway. Across the highway, there are more woods. Close to the back of my house are woods that go back roughly 700 feet, then hit a huge field, then to more woods. There is a house way back in the woods, but nobody really lives there, and they are only there for a few weeks out of the year. I cannot see the house from mine. There are maple, oak, pine, and ash trees. I am the only house on this side of my street, with only a few houses on the opposite side spaced very far apart. A follow-up investigation report was done by investigator Mark Maisel. I performed a site visit to this area on August 7th and 12th, spoke to both of the witnesses. The following can be added to these reports. Both witnesses described the animal as being 6.5 to 7 feet tall. The very first witness describes the animal as muscular, as his sighting happened at around 3 in the afternoon. The second witness again was unable to describe the animal's build, partly due to it taking place at around 10:30 at night. Both witnesses described the animal to have had a pale face and hands. Both also described the head shape as round. The witness, the first one, stating that it did not have facial hair. The second states that the animal did not have a neck, while the first one did not notice it. Witness 1 describes the animal's arms as long, with large hands that were facing rearwards. Witness 1 observed the animals from a bay window on the side of the house that was approximately 50 feet from this animal. The second witness saw the animal from approximately 100 feet away and saw the animal near the woodline. The second witness did state that, as the animal was leaving, he did hear one knock as it was heading further into the forest. The very first incident lasted only about 30 seconds in total duration. The second lasting about 2 minutes, as the witness was trying to figure out what he was seeing. Both describe the animal as only moving on 2 feet. Both state that the animal headed into the wood, east. The second witness was unaware of what had transpired the previous day when his sighting had occurred. Further examination of the area provided the following information. The area runs along an interstate highway. The woods behind the house open into a large field, followed by more open woods. Further back, another field opens up, and then again, more woods are present. Eventually, this will lead to a house. There is actually a drainage area to the south of the house that leads to a creek that crosses under the highway. Signs of movement were abundant in the woods, with deer and raccoon prints being seen very often. Actually, a deer carcass was observed near the road, as was a possum near the south woodline. No other footprints were found. The household also throws their peelings and spoiled food out into the woods. That attracts animals. The cat has still not shown up at the residence. Farms and a horse barn are nearby, as was the abundance of wild berries